Okay, so I have literally completed all my quilting. As you can see, it's really pretty. I love it. I tried to steam off some of the lines, but I'm not going to really worry about that because I am going to wash it. And washing it will take out all these blue lines. And it'll also, you know, kind of snug it up. Now for this here, this piece here, we need to square all this up, and all I did was grab my threads from underneath and pulled them out because they're going to get cut off with my cutter. And you can see I don't have this completely squared. So I am going to line this up like this. Make sure this is straight, and I'm going to trim that edge off. Like so. So that end and all the threads are gone. And we're going to do the same thing on this side. Really don't think I have to pull much of my threads out from underneath. But you want to kind of stay on the line. If you've got some little crooked ends there, you might want to cut them off. So I always line this up now because now I have a right straight line here. So I'm going to line one of my lines up on my ruler here. That way I know I'm going to be keeping straight. Like so. Pull it down. And keeping it straight with my and gone. Oops. Gone. So that end's done. So now you can see we have nice squared off fabric. So we're going to do the same thing over here. Clean up this edge. And I'm just going to pull all my threads, looking underneath here, pull all my threads out so they can get chopped. There we go. Line this up with the straight line that we made. I know my fabric looks crooked on here, but I'm lining it up with where I just cut. So I want to move over a tad bit, and it is a bit crooked, my fabric, so this piece is going to be cut off because it's not straight, but it is now, as you can see. Oops. And there's all the threads gone, hopefully. See? Gone. So I'm just going to push all these threads out. And now I have another clean edge here. So I'm just going to line my ruler up with this edge and trim. Whoa. Wow, I think I have a dull blade. And I just put that in. And it's probably from cutting my batting. There we go. Or I'm just not pressing hard enough. That could be it too. So I'm going to line my ruler up at the top here with my line on my ruler, because my edge is very straight up there. And we're going to continue trimming. Okay, that piece is done and ready to be sewn. So there's your quilted side. You can see your quilt lines, how beautiful that looks. I just absolutely love this. Now, I know this is an old-fashioned way of quilting, but it still looks really, really nice. It's, I don't know if you guys know, but from years ago, this is how they used to quilt, like this. So, all right, now this part, I'm going to show you how to pin and mark. So get your marker out. So here we have 6 rows. Let me get rid of this ruler. We have 6 rows. So dividing this piece in half, the seam here in the middle is going to be your middle. Now on your side piece, all you're going to do is fold your fabric in half like this. And all I did on here was I trimmed off all the threads. I didn't cut any of it, I just trimmed them off. So fold your fabric in half, your side seams, and make a finger pleat right there. Just use your finger to press that and you will get a line. That will be where your middle is. Okay, so you're going to line it right sides together. So you're going to take your middle seam and that little crease you made, and you're going to line them up like that. And then you're going to pin this in the middle, on the side here, and one more pin here. Now, we're going to sew this right across here, but we're going to stop at 1/4 inch seam here. So, oops, sorry Tia, didn't see you there, honey. Let me find my little 1/4 inch ruler. Where'd I put you? Here we are. Okay. So, these 1/4 inch rulers are awesome. I got these from Missouri Quilt Company. They're beautiful for doing half square triangles too. Now, I'm going to line this up with the middle line because each side of the line of this ruler, each side is a 1/4 inch. So I'm going to line it up here on this edge here. And I'm going to make a mark right here, like that. Okay, so there's my 1/4 inch seam here. And I'm going to do the same thing over here, measure a 1/4 inch, and put a line there. Because we're only going to sew to here, because then we have to sew our side seams up. So we're going to do the same thing on this side. Get that side prepared. Flip this around, and then we could just sew. Oh, I guess we need to make a center. So just folding my fabric in half, pinching it here to make a crease, and that will give me my middle. And then we're going to line this up pretty good. More. And I'm going to mark my 1/4 inch seam. Here. And 1/4 inch seam, oops, here. Alright. So, now it's time to go over to the sewing machine. We're done with that. So let me get set up here with the sewing machine and I will be back. Okay, so I still have my walking foot on. Okay, I'm not going to take my walking foot off. I'm just going to leave my walking foot on just so when I sew all these layers together, oops, I don't want anything to move on me. So, I'll pull my thread out here a bit. I'm going to slide this under my walking foot I'm going to do my 1/4 inch seam here, and I'm going to just stick my needle down like that, okay, and drop my foot. And I am going to do a wee bit of back stitching right here, so I'm going to go ahead, back stitch a couple stitches, and then I'm going to continue to sew my 1/4 inch seam. Absolutely love this walking foot. And I've got my needle in the down position, so if your machine's equipped with that, always keep your needle down, because if you kind of move your fabric or move your pins or something, sometimes it moves your fabric a bit. Take out that pin, and now I'm going to sew to that blue line. And then I'm going to do a couple of back stitches and pull that up and trim that off. And I am going to trim off my threads here. So now we have this. Okay, so when we sew this together like this, we have our little square corner here. Okay, that's why we did that. Probably could have left a little bit more here. I went a little past that blue line. So I'm just going to pick out a stitch or two, just because I don't like how that's close that is to the seam. So I'm just going to seam rip a couple of stitches out. There we go. Alright, so this is your handy dandy tool that a lot of quilters will be using or do use. Alright, so let's do the other side. Pull my threads out and get my foot underneath there. Drop it. Put my needle in the down position and do a couple back stitches. I'll tell you, a walking foot will be your best friend. I promise you that. Alright, we are done. That part. Okay, so I'm going to trim this off here. Trim off my threads. Now, we're going to do a little bit more pinning because this is our flap area, which you guys need to see this. Alright, this is the, let me move my sewing machine out of the way. So here's our flap. We've got it folded this way. So now, all you're going to do is bring your side up, still with the right sides together, see? Match the bottom here and stick a pin in there, like so. And just pin this all the way up. Pin it all the way up. So when you sew this, you're going to sew right, you're going to do your 1/4 inch, and you're going to flatten this out and sew right across at the top here. Right here where we made our stitch. So I am going to pin this side so I can just get both sides done. Hopefully I won't, we'll just sew it. I'll pin it after because I don't feel like getting pin pokes. Hate them. Okay, so I'm going to sew, holding my threads, and I'm going to take a back stitch just because this is the side here. Keeping my fabric. Keeping in mind with the blue line, I want to pinch it right close. I want to actually show you. I want to go over my stitching line here. So you got to kind of press it here underneath because it looks like it's going to pucker on you. And I'm going to go right over my stitching line. There we go. So, let me just show you how we've made our little box. So, when we turn this inside out, push our corner out, there's our one side completely done, and our corner is perfect. Is that a thread? No, it's a material. Okay, so now we're just going to do this on this side. We're going to pin it up. Start with the bottom here. You want your bottoms to match. And put a pin in the bottom. And then just work your way along the rest of this, the side here. And here. Okay? And then we're going to sew right across our stitching. Okay? Ouch. See? Damn, I hate pin pokes. You don't have to back stitch, but I kind of like to do that. And I put my pins upside down. Figures. So I'm still sewing my 1/4 inch seam, pulling my pins out from backwards. Now, when I'm finished this, if you guys don't have what they call an overcast stitch, it's almost like it surges the end of your material. And I'm going to show you that because an overcast stitch will prevent your sides here where we sewed here. It will prevent these from your edge, your raw edge here to fray. So I like to do the overcast stitch. And I'm going to flatten this out here in the corner as much as I can. And then I'm going to back stitch and run over my stitches, and that's it. I'm going to show you how to do an overcast stitch, which will seal all your edges off. Had we have done a lining, we wouldn't have had to do this. Okay, so if we would have did a lining, which is a little more complicated and a little more advanced, so I'm not going to get into lining this at the moment. So there is one side, so you're going to take your corner and push it as much as you can. You don't want to cut these corners because we are going to overcast the edges, and we need some fabric there to do that. So I want you to see how gorgeous the corners turned out. And you do need to go and give these, you will give this a little press with your iron. You're going to pull your seams out like this, and you're going to press that. Okay, like this. And you're going to press this one as well. Okay? And then we're going to, and as you can see, it stands up by itself. You don't even need the lining, really. And nobody's really going to see inside of your bag, but your bag will still be all finished, your cover will still be all finished up nicely. It sits on my sewing machine, I'm sure. As you can see. Whoops, you can't see. Let me move my machine over so you can see how nicely it sits on your sewing machine. See? And it's a really, really good dust cover because this here is the cover that came with my machine. So this whole part here is open just because my handle is on top to lift my machine. But my machine's usually situated in one spot, so I'm not moving it around very much. And I don't really need the handle. And if I do, pull the cover off. Simple as that. Okay, so I'm going to go finish this other half side here. And I'm going to give this a nice little press here, just to, you know, make it nice and squared off. Just give it a nice little press, your fresh edges here. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to overcast your stitches. And then we're going to put our binding on, and then our sewing machine cover is done. And I'll be back. Okay guys, I've got it all sewn up, my sides. and pressed. And look at how beautiful. Slip it over my sewing machine and tuck it away for the evening. Just leave my machine here ready to go for tomorrow, for the next day. Now for the overcast stitch, I don't know, some machines come equipped with an overcast foot, and when I have my machine, this is what you would call an overcast foot, right here. It's this one. And this is going to stitch over right over the edge and seal all of our fabrics together. Now, I do have to take my initial foot off. This walking foot has to come off. So I will take this off. Okay. And I have to reattach my presser foot holder here. Okay. And tighten that on. Alright. Put my walking foot aside for now. Alright. Now, for this one, I don't know, most machines have just they just clip on like this. Just drop your thing on it and it's done. Now I have settings on my machine that I can set for my overcast stitch, which means I have to go mode 2, 35. Oops, sorry, 12. See, on my machine it tells me what presser foot to use, and this is C, and it's marked with a C. Okay, so that's the presser foot it wants me to use. Now, let me just show you how this works. And I didn't trim off my thread here. And I did press this a little bit, just to make those corners stand up nice. Okay, so let's get our raw edges. And if you don't have this, just use zigzag. You can even zigzag it a couple of times to really seal those edges in. Now, you take your raw edge, and in this overcast foot, it's got like a little, it's like a blade, but it's not, it's plastic. And this is where you line your fabric up so it goes over the edge. So I'm going to line my fabric up like this. Nice and neat. Drop my needle down in case I have to move this. And then I'm just going to begin sewing. And I've got it set 12 is my number that does the overcast stitch. And then I'm going to begin sewing. And I think I broke my thread. Yes, I did. I didn't hold it. Very good. So I've got to re-thread my machine. And one good thing about this sewing machine, it has an automatic needle threader. So I don't have to thread this. I just have to put the thread on there and it pulls it through the needle. Don't even need my glasses. Alright, now let's try this again. This time I need to hold my threads. See? So easy to forget. Alright. Down there. Down there. And I'm just going to trim this off here. And then let me get a few stitches done. I'm keeping it lined up with the little bar there. There's a little bar. What it's basically doing is serging my edge. Absolutely serging all those fabrics in. And I will get a close-up for you right now so you guys can see exactly what it looks like. It's pretty cool. You can see how it's serging the edges. So if you don't know what an overcast stitch is or what it's for something like this. So you can totally seal off all those layers of fabric in there without having to make a lining. For something like this, you really don't need a lining. So as you can see, it's all tucked in there nicely. Look at this beautiful stitch. Absolutely gorgeous. I love this overcast stitch. And my sister and I, my sister, not me, has never used a lot of her stitches on her machine, and she has a machine identical to my Kenmore's. Both of us, I bought mine and then she bought hers so she can make rag quilts. So I'm just going to continue to do this, and like I said, if you don't have this fancy stitch on your machine, your overcast, by all means just do some really nice zigzags. And it doesn't hurt to go over it a couple of times, because that way a couple of zigzags is going to basically do exactly what this is doing here. So I hope you guys can see how wonderful that looks. How it pulls all the fabric in, and it goes right off the edge. This is a fantastic thing to have. But like I said, it looks really nice. It's worth it. And to spend that little bit of time, it takes a little bit of time to go around because it doesn't move super fast. So I'm going to go finish both sides. Just wanted to show you the overcast stitch. And you go ahead and zigzag yours if you don't have this. And if you do have it, use it and see how amazing it is. Alright, I'll be back. Okay guys, so now we have finished off our beautiful cover. As you can see, mine is completely done and all the edges are cleaned up, and I even trimmed the little threads that sometimes fray off of the fabric while you're sewing. I trimmed all of those off all along the edge there, so you can see how clean that edge is now. Okay, that's the raw edges. So now we have a really pretty cover. So now it's time to do our our binding. So I'm taking my 2.5 inch strip like so. This is the right side and this is the wrong side of my strip. I'm going to put my right side face up under on my sewing machine like this. Then I'm going to take my second piece and I'm going to put right sides together, and I'm going to put it from end to end. Okay, so what we're trying to do is sew a seam across on the diagonal, and it might, like, we have to sew across this way. And if you're not sure, hold your finger there like this, flip it up and make sure it's going the right way. See? You're not going to sew on the diagonal the wrong way. Don't sew from here to here, because that is the wrong way. So what some people do is they just stick a little pin in here just to show that that's where they need to go, right like this. Or you can take a marker and draw your line from this corner to this corner. Okay, so you're just going to sew regular. I put my regular sewing foot on, my walking foot. Oh. So I'm just going to grab my threads. I'm going to start right at this point here. Drop my needle down. Take a couple of stitches. Back stitch. Oh, didn't want to take off that fast. And then I'm just going to go follow my pin, where my pin is, all the way down, and again, back stitch. Lift it up. And the reason we sew our binding like this is to prevent a lot of bulk when we're doing, when we're putting our binding on our quilt. We don't want a whole bunch of bulk in there. Alright, so what we have now is this piece here. We have right sides together. If we open it up, we have a perfectly joined on a diagonal. Okay, the reason we do that, like I said, is to prevent bulk. And all you're going to do now with this piece is cut it 1/4 inch away from your seam. your stitch line and just trim that off. So now you're going to take this over to the iron and you're going to press these open. So I've gone ahead and put mine together. I figured about 33 inches for each side to go. All you have to do is take your piece here, take your thing, your sewing machine cover, and go all the way around it by holding and leaving yourself a good 8-inch tail. So cut a little extra 8 inches on each side. So just take it, measure all the way around and see if this is going to be long enough. So I'm going to go from that corner to that corner to that corner, and I need to have a bit of a tail left over on the other side. So my strip ends up being 33 times 2, so 66 inches long in length. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to press this, and I'm going to come back while we're on the ironing board. Okay, so next thing you're going to do is, like I said, press these open. Don't press these to one side. If you press them open, it reduces the bulk again. Just kind of finger press it, press your seam open, and then shove your iron on there and press it like that. So it's nice and flat. And you want to go over here. Now my lines don't match up, but I don't care. It's just a binding. You're not going to sit there and look at the binding. The binding's way too small to worry about them. These are just all different pieces of a fat quarter that I cut. So that's all it is. Okay, so I press that one open and that one. And again, one more. Okay. There we go. Finger press it. That way. And that way. Now you're going to take your binding and you're going to fold it right in half and press it, but fold it wrong sides together. So this is how you're going to press it, wrong sides together. Okay? And as you can see where we did our seam, our seams do not match. Do not go over top of each other, so there's absolutely no bulk in here where your seam is. You're already working with enough layers of fabric that you want to reduce as much bulk as you can in your seams. It's very important in ironing stuff when you're quilting, making quilts. So I'm just folding mine in half and pressing it down. Folding it in half. And folding it in half. Okay, like that. And that's our binding ready to go on our quilt. Okay, so I'm going to be back to show you how to sew that binding on. So easy. Okay, so this is going to be pretty easy to do. What we're going to do is we want our binding to be sewn. I'm doing mine on the outside, or sorry, on the inside of my, I'm going to sew it this way. So all you do is take your raw edge. I'm working on the wrong side of my cover. You're going to leave, and I would like you to start roughly in the middle somewhere of your bottom here. So leave yourself about that much fabric. And if you want to pin, you can go ahead and pin this on, but I don't use pins, okay? So I don't really need pins. So I'm just going to leave about 6 inches. I'm going to start here in the middle. And I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch seam all the way around, attaching this piece to the bottom of my cover. So let me get in here, and I am going to do a couple of back stitches. So I'm just sewing my, and I'm stuck here with the iron. Very good. Get that out of here. All right. So take a couple of back stitches. Let's see, did I leave enough room? Not really. I want to go, sorry. I want to go further down the fabric. I want to kind of be off in the edge here. I'm about 7 or 8 inches from the corner. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to sew, I'm going to back stitch. Now all I do for my binding is I just turn my piece, and it does, and these here corners you're going to get to your serge edges. If I were you, just press the seam, sew the seam into facing the, now how did I do this? Yeah, facing, push them towards the side seam. Okay, don't even know what I'm saying here. Told you I wasn't professional. All right, here we go again. I'm just going all around attaching my binding. Going a little easier over the, easy over. So this is what you've done. You've left a tail. Okay? You backstitched here. You started off the middle, sort of. You don't want to be right in the middle, and you'll see why. And I'm pushing my seam here in towards the side. So not outward, inward. All right. Okay, I'm going to sew right across the whole other back or front, whatever it is. This will probably be the front. Wow, my crooked. Alright, now I'm getting to my side again, pushing my seam towards the side. And I'm just going to go easy over that because it's quite bulky there. I don't want to bust my needle. There we go. Alright, we're getting close to finishing off here. Pushing this to the side, stretching that out, and going. Okay, go easy over your thick seam there. Now we're getting to where our where we started. Now you're going to leave at least 6 inches here, where you started and to where you're finished. So leave 6 inches open, so you have room to work. 6 or 8, whatever you're comfortable. When you see what we're doing, you might want to leave 8, just so you have room to work. Back stitch and cut it off. Now let me show you what we do next. Okay, ouch. So this is where we started, and this is where we ended. Okay, now to get our binding to fit perfectly on here, you're not going to just fold it over and sew it. Okay, let me cut this thread off because it's going to annoy me. Alright, what you're going to do is open your seam up like this. Okay, open it up, and put a pin in it roughly in the middle of where this area that we didn't sew. Put a pin in it there, just to hold it in place. Okay, so lift your pin up like this, or lift your binding up over your pin like so. And now you're going to do the same thing with this one. You're going to open this up like so, nice and flat. Okay, you're going to take your fingers and pinch it right where, whoops, don't stretch this. Okay, leave it nice and flat. Take your finger and pinch right where you need to join, basically right where you put that pin in. And I don't know if you can see this, but I'm pinching it right here. And I'm not pulling it tight. You don't want to pull your seam tight. Pull your pin out, stick your pin in between the two, or between here, where you need to sew a line. So stretch that out again where you got your pin. If you can see, I've got it, my right side's pinned together, and that's where I want to do my seam. Okay, sorry about that, my camera died. Alright, so, let me turn my light back on. So we have some lighting in here, and we kind of don't need this bright light that gives a lot of flash. So we have pinned where we are going to sew, and as I was saying, you lay it down to make sure that it's going to fit without pulling. You don't want it to pull, because it'll just pucker your nice cover that you're making. So let's get to sewing again. And now we'll continue. So what you're going to do is pick this piece up, and where you put your pins here, that's your sewing line here. So you're going to sew across there. So all I'm going to do is drop my needle right where I have that pin. I'm going to put my needle down right where the pin is, and then I'm going to kind of turn my fabric here so I can get this pin out, and then I'm going to drop my presser foot, pull this, and keep it nice and flat and straight and even. Okay, and I want to sew straight across here. So I'm going to do a little bit of back stitching just so my binding doesn't come apart. Okay, and I'm going to keep sewing, following my pin, like so, and back stitch. And that piece is joined. Oops. So now we have this extra piece. Here's our seam here. First we'll cut these off. So here's our extra piece, and we're just going to cut this down to our seam line, 1/4 inch away, approximately, like this. And then you're just going to finger press. So what you're going to do is put it down and see if you did a good job. And as you can see, my binding is absolutely fitting there perfectly. But open your seam that you just made, open it up, and finger press it. Or you can take it to the iron and press it, but my iron isn't turned on, so I'm just going to use my fingers to give this a press. And that will be my ironing job for the day. Okay, fold it over, flatten it out nice, put it back on your sewing machine now, and continue to sew the balance of the opening. So I'm just going to, I'm going to end up tacking that because I have a tacking stitch as well, and I hit that button by mistake. So come here, foot pedal. So it's going to tack. I don't need to back stitch now. And I'm just going to sew this up See, keep your seams nice and flat here. And that will be the only bulkiness in your binding. And then I'm just going to run over those stitches where I started, lift my foot, and trim. And that's all there is to it. Your binding is on. And this is exactly the same way you will do your quilt binding. The only thing here is we had no corners to miter. And when we get into that kind of stuff, I'm going to show you guys how to do your mitering of your corners. So now let's flip this the right way. So push your corners in, push them in nicely, pull your bag out again, and I knew I had a thread there, and I have threads here that I did not see that I would like to trim off, because that to me is just the work of a sloppy sewer, as having threads everywhere on their work, and that come out of your seam. Now push your corners out, and I'm pushing this corner out. So now we've got our binding is on the inside, right like that. So what you're going to do is take your binding and fold it over. Now I've sewed a little bit too thick of a seam here, so I'm going to go along with my scissors, because where I want to fold my binding over, it's barely clipping my seam. I do not want my seam to show. It will cover it, but that's a real struggle. So I'm just going to trim my thick ends of my, where I sewed it really thick there. So just go along here, and I'm just going to trim it all down nicely, so I can have a nice wide binding at the bottom of my quilt. So the smaller you make this seam here, the bigger your, and it won't match up on the other side either, by the way. But I'm doing a fancy stitch when I'm done, so I'm going to show you that. But all I'm doing here is just trimming off this raw edge here, because it's way too big. It's bigger than 1/4 inch. And I don't want it that thick. So I'm trimming it down to, I don't know, a little less than 1/4 inch, a 1/4 inch scant, or isn't that what they would call it? And I could see where it went thin here, and then it went thick here. But that could just be the unevenness of my fabric as well, too. So let's just make it all the same. Okay, and we're getting close to where I started here. This seam is quite thick here. Alright, now we've got a nice, perfect one. Now my machine comes equipped with all kinds of fancy stitches, and I'm going to do this really cute fancy stitch, and you can just sew it with regular straight stitch. You don't have to use a fancy stitch like I'm doing, but I just think the fancy stitch finishes it off really nicely. So I'm just going to take my binding from the bottom side. As you can see, it finishes off your edge really, really nice. Fold it over. Set my mode to, and I'm going to do 65. Okay, I'm going to do this really cute fancy stitch. So I want to start right about where my back side is, but I don't want to see this. And pull that through, drop my pedal, foot pedal down, and just tack down your binding. And I'm not going to back stitch because I don't want to destroy get a little bit more done. I got to move my coffee because yesterday I had a coffee on my table and my machine bounces because this is not a super hard table. It's just a long rectangle craft table. And it bounced my coffee right off on the floor, and I'm telling you what a mess I had. That's when I gave up sewing for a while. So you gotta stop every once in a while and check that out. And then it kind of goes behind on the white part of my inside here. So the fancy stitch is tacking down the actual binding itself. I have all kinds of really pretty stitches with this machine. But I'm trying to keep them even so I don't have... And see, my binding, you can't even tell. Like, it just looks like it's the way the fabric is. You can't tell that it was two different kinds. Well, it's not two different kinds. It is two pieces. Wow. But you can't tell that they're cut from the fabric, but on different pieces of the fabric because you get different patterns. And this one, I'll show you. Hang on. Look at how pretty. Okay. And now we're getting into my second piece that I sewed on. You'll see. Really thick right there. So just kind of, you can feel it with your fingers. Just kind of go slow over that so you don't bust your needle. Because it doesn't take much to break needles. And now I'm working in my different kind of pattern, but it just looks like it all blends in. And these are just cut from fat quarters. Like, all my squares here were cut from fat quarters. So if you guys go on eBay, you can get fat quarters really cheap, or you can buy these things called fat quarter bundles. Am I going to run out of thread? No. So I just wanted to flip this over to show you guys. By me cutting and trimming my edging, when you flip this over, my stitching doesn't touch this border inside. So it's just on the outside of it here. So it looks really sharp like that. A binding can be as difficult as you want it to be. My sister was so scared to put on her binding because she's never done binding in her life. And I didn't yell at her, but I said to her, it's so easy, you know, have faith in yourself. You'll be able to do it. She's one of these people that do not give herself credit for anything she does. And she does an incredible job when she puts her mind to it and does it. And she did all her binding, everything on her bag, or on her cover. And she did an incredible good job. So, I mean, it can be intimidating, but as you can see here, where my fabric changed from different fabrics, can you really notice that in the bag? That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. Use whatever fabric you have. This is kind of like great for scrap pieces left. You can make 5-inch squares. As long as you have a lining that's big enough to make inside of your bag. And even if you don't have it one piece, as in per my quilt, the one that's behind me hanging on the wall here, that one I had to add a piece in the back because I couldn't, my fabric wasn't wide enough. And you would never know. So, which way did we sew this? And why is it flipping that way? I don't want it to do that. And that's gonna pucker there. Okay, I'm gonna take this out. Something's not right here with my seam. I could have swore I sewed it the other way. Oh no, I sewed it that way. Okay. That's the way it goes. That's the way the ball bounces. Alright, so I'm going to go and finish this and come back and show you the completely finished piece. That you guys did a great job. It's so easy. I told you it would be easy and I went step by step. Hang on. Ta-da! We're all done. Wait, that's not the same one, right? Anyway, this is my sister's. And I just wanted to quickly show you hers because her binding, she did a fantastic job for the first time ever doing a binding. She's a little crooked in spots, but look at, who sees that, right? So here's the one we just finished. Perfect. And here's the one I made the other day, and this one is mine. And now I've got thread all over mine, which I'll just brush off. So this is just a really simple, easy project to do, and a good way to learn how to sew, how to get the feel of your machine and certain different stitches that you can use, and to get a feel on how to do a really easy binding as opposed to doing on a quilt, because then you have to start mitering your corners. And again, like I said, it doesn't really matter if you see all your seams in here. If you wanted to line that, you really could, but I didn't find it necessary to line a sewing machine. You got your backing, your batting, and your top. Same as a quilt. You wouldn't want to see seams like this on your quilt. Of course not, but anyways, I really hope I was successful in teaching you guys how to make a sewing machine cover, and that you have fun making it and easy to follow a tutorial. That's my goal. So the next thing I'm going to show you guys how to make is a pin cushion. Then we're going to make a bag and maybe an apron, and then we're going to get into quilts. I want to just do some real simple sewing stuff, get you a feel of your machine so that when you start sewing your quilt blocks together and everything, as you can see, there is my quilt on the wall. You can see that those quilt squares, it's kind of important to have your sewing down pat when you start doing these, because I don't want you to get frustrated and give up. So if we do a couple of small projects, like really easy projects, this sewing machine cover is super easy. The pin cushion's even easier. A tote bag, a sewing bag, whatever you want to use it for, it's going to be super cute with a zipper. And we're going to do an apron. So I'll always be wearing my apron. I haven't made it yet, but when I do, I'll do the tutorial. So I'll see you guys soon. I hope you enjoyed my very first quilting tutorial. I know it was poorly done. The camera views and the way the camera was, it was super shitty. I know that. I'm not a professional here. I'm just in my own home, in my lovely new beading room and quilting room. And I'm just trying to make do with what I have. I don't want to go out and spend all this money on being a big, huge professional that I'm not. So today I'm off to doing a beading project because I got some wonderful new beads in the mail that were sent to me free from Potomac Bead Company, and they are the round duos. And they are super, super sweet. So I'm going to make something with that, and I have an idea in mind. So see you soon on the next video, guys. Take care.